Motivate to motivate, spit till I suffocate. Very quick to agitate, concentrate till I rate. I'm irate, in a state, my confidence is a trait. Success is my motherfucking fate.
Bloody crease. For as long as I can remember, video games have always been a part of my life. From the Tomb Raider days on PS1 watching my dad, from owning a Game Boy Advance to playing Pokemon Silver over and over again. And over the years I've played through numerous consoles and handhelds, from the PS1, PS2, PS3, Xbox, PS4, Xbox 360, Wii, all the PSP, loads of different consoles, and 3DS, DS, you get the picture. As a result, I've played tons of games, some good, some bad, and some I'll never forget. Around 8 years ago, I got the games Mass Effect and Mass Effect 2 for Christmas. And thanks to Neo GameSpark, NGS, shout out to you mate, I found these games and I knew they were pretty good. And I knew from these games that the decisions that you make in the first game, i.e. Mass Effect 1, will affect the consequences in the second game. So it gave me incentive to get both of them and not just play the second one because it's supposedly going to be the better one. And I knew that the same would be the case for the inevitable third game in the trilogy, Mass Effect 3. After playing the first game, I obviously went on to the second, and it blew me away with how much depth and how good it actually was. The game was so good that immediately after I finished it, I started up again and played as the Vanguard class, playing it all over again from start to end. And guess what? After finishing that, I finished it again for a third time, and it might be because I had no life or nothing better to do when I was maybe about 13, 14, but point still stands, I haven't done that with really many games, even to this day. To this day! Recently I played through Mass Effect 2 again, and it still holds up, and really, it's one of the best games ever made, and here's why.
Whatever uniform you wear, you can fight like a Krogan, run like a leopard, but you never be better than Commander Shepard.
Mass Effect is a sci-fi space opera made by the guys at BioWare, which spans over 3 games. It's a trilogy. Filled with depth from its various races, from the Turians to the strong, battle-built Krogans to the fast-operating Solarians. Each species is oozing with lore and history, even to their morphology, so the way the Krogans are built to be strong and in battle. They were designed to be that way, to be great in fighting. And the relationships between these various races, like the Asari being kind of at the top and in the Citadel, in the Council, being able to make bureaucratic decisions which affect the whole galaxy. Coupled with this, each planet has its own description and its own way of life depending on who inhabits it. From Afterlife in Omega, the nightclub, crazy nightclub in the galaxy, where, you know, if you got your man Shepard a little bit tipsy, you can actually get him a lap dance, and you can even get him a bit drunk if you really want to the outer space prison known as Purgatory, where all the prisoners get put in one big spaceship, where they can be sold off to slave traders. The main character in all of this is Commander Shepard, and Commander Shepard, you can choose his background and his reason for joining the Citadel Alliance. If you choose to, you can even customize his face, but I decided to keep it as the default face because that's the way I kind of know him. From when I was younger, I kept his face like that, so the way I know Shepard is his default face. And the beauty here is that Commander Shepard is really one of 2 characters depending on how you choose to play him, or he could even be somewhat in the middle, either going for a morally upright, upstanding, caring Paragon Shepard, or a badass renegade, the Renegade Shepard. And the type of Shepard you choose to play will affect his relationships with other characters in the game, and even the way he looks. As the game goes on, the more evil you become, your eyes start turning red, and your scars start getting stronger and more thicker, sort of personifying the evil that you are becoming. It's like the book The Twits by Roald Dahl. The more negative their thoughts were, the uglier they became. I think he looks pretty cool, but you get the point. If you play the first Mass Effect, you can actually import those decisions that you made from the last game to your Shepard in the last game to the Shepard in Mass Effect 2, which is pretty awesome. In addition, you're given the choice to pick one of 6 classes, so there will be either a mixture or a pure version of a weapons expert, a biotic, or a technician. And each adds a very different style of gameplay to the mix, which ultimately means better replayability. My favorite to use is the Adept, which is the pure biotic class. And essentially this gives you the ability to pick up enemies and throw them off the map, Fusro Dar style.
He's Dovahkiin, Dragonborn.
And depending on which class you choose, you need to pick squad mates which complement you and make up for your lack of ability. So if you've got a biotic class, you're gonna want technicians on your team. I'm a bit different though, because I like switching up the squad mates to truly feel like I'm role playing and have it so these characters are actually witnessing the story with me. So I try to do like a fair assortment of the characters regardless of the of their class, because of the whole role playing aspect. Most people probably won't do that. Maybe they will, I don't know. But they also do have unique dialogue choices per mission they're on as well. So if you pick the same 2 squad mates for all the missions, you're going to miss out on those unique interactions, which are pretty cool. My favorite thing about Commander Shepard though is, despite the fact that you're molding him to be the ultimate hero or the ultimate badass, and you can still pick his choices, at the end of the day he's still the same character fundamentally. What I mean by this is that the story follows through in the same manner, but the way he conducts himself is quite different. As a Paragon, Shepard will empathize, negotiate, and attempt to understand the other character's feelings and do what he deems to be as morally correct. But as the Renegade Shepard, you are still well spoken and quite articulate, but you approach scenarios with a more ends justifies the means philosophy, very akin to the Elusive Man. It's quite interesting to see that throughout a Renegade playthrough, the Elusive Man and Shepard seem to get on a lot better than if you play the Paragon sort of side of the game, which is pretty interesting because most of the time I do a Paragon. So this time going through as a Renegade, I noticed these changes. And ultimately, as the game progresses, the decisions that you make hold even more and more consequence. In my last playthrough, I played as Evil Shepard, and I actually found it quite physically difficult to carry out some of these very hard decisions, but I had to just commit to the roleplay. And weirdly enough, I just became more okay doing bad things as Evil Shepard. And as the game went on, I found it somewhat enjoyable. I suppose Nietzsche's philosophy can be applied here. When you gaze into an abyss, the abyss gazes back into you. Simply meaning, when you do evil, you become evil. Obviously to a lesser degree, because I know it's just a game. Commander Shepard is intelligent and articulate, and above all, knows how to get the job done.
It's been a long journey, and no one's coming out without scars. But it all comes down to this moment. We win or lose it all in the next few minutes. Make me proud. Make yourselves proud.
Well said. Let's go finish this.
Mass Effect 2 continues right after where the first game left off, where you take out the rogue Spectre Saren and get warned of the impending Reaper threat. Thing is, the Normandy gets blasted out of space and Shepard actually dies at the beginning of the game. Spoiler warning. An extremely bold move, but an interesting one to see. Fortunately, Shepard gets retrieved from outer space and billions of credits are spent to get this man back to life. And this project was called the Lazarus Project, which was conducted by Cerberus. Now, Cerberus is a pro-humanitarian group whose main aim is to secure and expand humanity's place in the galaxy. Only thing is that they're kind of demonized for their experiments on aliens, i.e. non-humans, and their somewhat human supremacist ideals. They are kind of seen as terrorists by the rest of the galaxy. Upon Shepard's revival, he is told by the Elusive Man, a higher up in Cerberus, that he's been revived to essentially track down the collectors who were collecting and taking away humans from human colonies. Shepard needs to investigate what's happening to them and why. His mission is to gather a team from around the galaxy and stop these guys, stop the collectors. And once you recruit each of these teammates, you're given an option to do their loyalty mission. Increase their loyalty to you, which will in turn help them. It will help increase their odds that they're going to survive the final mission, the suicide mission. And it helps that they get a cheeky new power from it as well. And the last mission is an intense few hours and one of the greatest few hours in video games. I'm not gonna lie, it's so cool. In this mission, teammates can actually die permanently if they're assigned roles poorly, so you really need to get to know your squad and what they're good at. And they can die from lack of loyalty or even a lack of upgraded defenses on the Normandy when you're trying to finally get to this collector homeworld, because if your ship isn't powerful enough to handle the defenses, people are gonna get killed from it, right? When a character dies, it hits so hard because you spend hours with these characters throughout the game just for them to die just because you didn't upgrade the ship. And even to the extent where you can have a romantic relationship with some of these characters, if not all of them, to an extent. It just depends on how many conversations and how much contact you have with them throughout the game. You can actually have a romantic relationship with them. You can actually do this. It's pretty cool, especially for the time when it came out, when it was less of a thing. And the only game that kind of did this of this kind of era was Persona 4, and it did it to the same organic degree. A lot of the other games had romances, but not in this sort of organic level where you actually feel like you've earned earn the final result. There's so many choices on who to romance, it actually warrants a second playthrough, or third or fourth if you like me, 7th or 8th. It might seem a bit daunting and confusing, especially if you haven't played the first Mass Effect game. Thankfully, there's an incredibly detailed codex which gives you information about the races, the planets, and the story so far. So if you're interested in learning more, it's entirely optional to read this codex, but if you're the sort of person who doesn't really care about reading or learning any of the lore, that's completely fine, because it's not shoved down your throat and you don't have to read it if you don't want to. It's entirely optional. And the game's still pretty enjoyable at a very surface level without reading about the world and such, because there's so many good things about the game.
Goliath, I've taken many bad things out of the world. You're the only good thing I ever added to it.
Arguably, of all the components of Mass Effect 2, it's the characters that really steal the show. As I said, during the story, Shepard is tasked with getting the ultimate team to take down the Collectors. All squad members and even the Normandy crew are well realized and feel like real people with real backstories. And you being the commander on the ship makes you really feel like these guys' lives are in your hands and their lives are at stake if you mess up this mission. You can even go to the lower decks of the ship, to the engineering deck, where you can actually talk to the engineers, and they're pretty minor characters, you don't really need to know more about them, but if you want to know about them, you can actually learn their backstories by talking to them. It's pretty cool. There are 10 different squad members you can recruit throughout the game, and 3 of them are DLC, and the whole cast are diverse and have different reasons for wanting to join your team. Naturally, because Jacob and Miranda are part of Cerberus, they're the first to join the team, and they're some of the only humans, as obviously Cerberus is a pro-human organization. As the game progresses, you'll even get former allies like Tali and Garrus that join your team from the first game. My favorite character is Thane Krios, and he's a Drell assassin, and one of the reasons why he's one of my favorites is because of his design. It's so cool, and he's very disciplined and highly motivated, and he's also dying. He has a disease. Essentially, Mass Effect 2 is all about the characters, to the extent that the storyline actually mainly revolves around recruiting them and getting them to be loyal for the final battle at the end of the game. And I still get chills from the launch trailer. It's actually incredible. It feels like watching a AAA blockbuster movie trailer. It has guns, action, drama, and space sex. No, not SpaceX, space sex.
We need a
The fact that you have the option to chat to these guys during missions and you don't even have to do it if you don't want to further adds to the feeling of immersion and the fact that these guys are part of your team. You need them to have bonds with you if you want to get through that final mission, that final suicide mission. And these bonds are part of your journey as Commander Shepard. As I said earlier, astoundingly, no matter what, there will always be some unique lines of dialogue, no matter who you bring into the mission, even if it has nothing to do with the character specifically. All of this adds to a strong feeling of unity with all the other characters. Though none of this would be possible without the stellar voice acting from the voice cast. It was actually so good that when I was playing the game, my sister actually thought I was watching a movie, when, I was obviously just playing a game. There's some pretty well-known actors in the game, such as Seth Green, Martin Sheen, that rhymes, and Keith David. And these guys are responsible for bringing these characters to life in this vast universe, and what a universe it is. As I said, Mass Effect takes place on an intergalactic scale. And interestingly, humanity is actually at the bottom of the hierarchy compared to all the other races, especially in the first game. The reason that humanity actually reached the final frontier in the first place was because they discovered a data cache with Prothean technology on Mars. This essentially led humanity to discover the mass relays and set their technology thousands of years in the future. This means that it's still pretty early for humanity on the intergalactic stage, which means they still have to prove themselves. But thankfully, Shepard's efforts in the first game have definitely bolstered humanity's reputation. And you are Shepard, you are that man or woman, depending on which you choose. And the weight of humanity is on your shoulders. But because of this though, you have your own ship and it's so sweet, it's like Star Trek style. And as I said, you have all these crew that you can chat to between missions on this ship. If you're the more introverted type, you can actually just chill in your quarters by yourself, listen to some tunes, feed your fish, admire your collection of ship replicas, and all of which are completely optional too. In your private quarters, you can even customize your suit. You can change the colors, the suit colors, and different parts of your armor. In addition, you can also customize your casual outfit, so you can choose what you want to wear throughout the Normandy. And all of this adds to immersion. And if you need upgrades, you can head to the ship's lab, you can upgrade your gear, equipment, etc., and even the very crucial Normandy ship defenses for that very, very important final mission. Or if you need some time alone, you can just go down to the observation deck, stare out into the stars, just take a minute to relax and think of the impending threat that's coming. But take a breather, because there's a lot to enjoy here. But it is a great way to clear your mind and experience a bit of peace with all the mayhem going on around the game. I love it. This context and situation framework really reinforces the idea that you are Shepard. This is your character. And you're the only one that can understand him, because you're the one that sees and feels what he does. It's truly a story unlike many others in gaming, where the decisions you make shape this already established character, and even more so if you played the first game. I mean, the ship wouldn't mean much if you didn't have any cool places to travel, but obviously this isn't the case. In the wilds, there are many types of aliens that want to stop you. Luckily for you though, you got many ways of doing it, and they're all unbelievably engaging. Now, the magnum opus, the most crucial part of a video game, how it plays. And as you could expect, it's fantastic. And surprisingly holds up really well even after 10 years. The gameplay is a cover shooter mixed with some powers for more varied gameplay. And as I said, depending on the class that you choose, one's gameplay style will be completely different. Now, my favorite class is the Adept, who only has access to the pistol and machine pistol, with another weapon able to be selected later on in the game, with all the classes. The twist here is the biotic powers, because an Adept, as I said, is a pure biotic. The ability Pull allows you to throw an energy ball towards the enemies, which essentially homes towards them, pulls them out of cover, and makes them more vulnerable to attacks. And they're basically floating in the air. The beauty of this power, and like many others, is that you can actually angle the power so that it curves around corners and you can catch those pesky guys in cover. That's if you use it correctly. This, coupled with the other power known as Throw, enables you to basically clot the enemy off the map, Fusrodar style. These attacks only work though when their shields and or barriers or armor is down, so only when their health is exposed. For example, most organic enemies will have a barrier or a shield around them, and synthetic enemies will have an armor around them too. All of which can be destroyed by gunfire and or powers like Overload, which does hard damage to shields. And Overload is one of those powers that is only available to technicians, such as the Engineer, the Sentinel, or the Infiltrator. What's amazing is that your squad mates have these classes too, so if one of them has Overload, they can make up for your shortcomings, which is why I like to use Miranda and Morden a lot, because they had that ability to make up for the shortcomings with my lack of tech powers. The best part of these classes though are the unique powers, like the Adept Singularity, which is a Mass Effect feel which you can throw at the enemies, which makes them susceptible to pull. So if you throw the ball into a group of enemies and their health's exposed, they're all going to start floating out and you can just beat them up with gunfire or anything you want, throw. Or you pick whatever you want. All of these different unique powers personify the class in the best way possible. Let me explain. The soldier is a pure weapons expert with no access to biotic or tech powers. The ability, Adrenaline Rush, allows you to move faster and do more damage for a short period. The Infiltrator is able to use snipers and pistols, and a few tech powers which are catered to long-range combat and stealth, like the Invisibility Cloak, which allows you to sneak up on enemies and do extra damage. The Vanguard uses shotguns, pistols, and some biotic powers for close-up, high-damage gameplay. And the ability Biotic Charge speeds up towards enemies, makes them flinch, allowing you to blast them with the shotty or whatever gun you see fit. The Sentinel only has the pistol, but the Sentinel has access to both biotic and tech power, making the Sentinel the best hybrid, thus being the most versatile class with the added power of tech armor, giving you the extra layer of protection during those tough firefights. The Engineer is the pure technician and has the ability to hack into enemy AI and summon a combat drone, so this gameplay is more catered to a more passive approach, manipulating things from behind the scenes and orchestrating certain events. Last but not least is the Pure Biotic, which is the Adept, and gives you the ability to use raw biotic power to throw enemies around and use Singularity to bring enemies out of cover. Honestly, this gameplay is really addictive. The gunplay is so satisfying and rewarding, and the game has enough levels of challenge to be open to any player, beginner or veteran. 8 years later, after playing the game, I still managed to find myself spending 40 hours through one playthrough. And again, like before, I'm tempted to play it again. It's that good. All your squad members have different classes, so that obviously means there's no objective best or worst class to pick, because all the squad members can compensate for your lacking in a certain area. Only complaint though is that the friendly AI leaves a little bit to be desired. They do like to stay in the open sometimes and not go in cover, but at the very least you can direct them and point them to where you want them to go, and when they use their power. All in all, one of the greatest third-person shooters ever. The sheer amount of options to do in Mass Effect 2 is incredible. From the romance choice, to the class, to your morality. It's so replayable that I've done so several times, despite this being the second entry in a trilogy, so it's the middle of the story really. Everything here is so wholesome that if I was to recommend you one game to play in the trilogy, it would be this one. In Mass Effect 2, you are Commander Shepard, and he is the tether between you, the player, and this vast, expansive universe. I've heard Mass Effect 2 be compared to The Empire Strikes Back in terms of how good the sequel was in the trilogy, and I think I agree. For me, Mass Effect 2 is why I love gaming. It's an escape to a brand new world, a world impossible by the current scope of reality, a world only accessible through gaming. This universe is so well realized that I feel like it existed before I started playing and continued long after I finished. You can fight like a Krogan, run like a leopard, but you'll never be better than Commander Shepard. So, I feel like this is probably going to be quite a long video. I did really enjoy going through the game again, getting clips and just talking about it really. I am quite surprised it's taken me this long to talk about Mass Effect 2 because of, you know, I do regard this channel to be anime gaming. I don't know about the distribution, be it 50-50, but I'm trying to get more gaming stuff out. Still got a few anime videos planned, of course, but Mass Effect 2 is just one of those games that I had to make a video on because I just love it. Even if I don't talk about it ever again, which I probably will, I'm happy with this video, you know, it's just done, it's done. So with that said, guys, have a nice day, enjoy, go out, do things, yes. Bye bye, have a good one.
Season, and I'm out for the kill. Adrenaline pumping through my veins, now I'm feeling the thrill. Call me Itachi, you won't see me. Tsukuyomi.